Tensions in the East China Sea as Chinese and Japanese ships face off around the Senkaku Islands. What does this latest spat signal in the region, and could this turn kinetic? Joining us to unpack the latest is retired Marine Colonel Grant Newsham. He's a senior fellow at the Japan Forum for Strategic Studies and author of When China Attacks. Grant Newsham, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
No, always good to be here.
Now, amid the latest China-Japan spat, China and Japan's coast guards are giving different accounts of the latest confrontation around the Senkaku Islands. These are geopolitically strategic islands. First, how are you reading this latest escalation, if you will?
Well, it's all part of China's long-term objective, and that is ultimately to dominate the Japanese, to take Japanese territory, and put the Japanese in their place and humiliate them in the process. What's been going on around the Senkakus has been going on for well over a decade now, but the Chinese are around the islands every day. They're more aggressive in more places more often than they've ever been. And this latest episode, if you look at what they're saying about it, it is very direct. It's saying, this is our place. We're going to keep Japanese fishing boats out of here. What's there to discuss? They're turning up the heat on all fronts, and this is just one more example around the Senkakus.
Now, to your point, China has been sending an increasing number of ships towards these islands. Last year marked a record high for the third straight year in a row. Now, given that the U.S.-Japan Security Treaty, the two nations are to defend each other if one comes under attack, it's not a strategic ambiguity that Taiwan has. Given all of that, what is Beijing probing here? Could it turn kinetic?
Well, there's no reason it couldn't. And one does get the impression that the Chinese just might be out for blood. They just might not mind if somebody gets hurt, if there's some shooting. And you look at the activities they have done, say, interfering with American, Australian, Canadian, and even Japanese aircraft and ships, particularly aircraft, over the South China Sea, over the East China Sea, international waters. It's a miracle nobody's been hurt. I mean, you drop flares right in front of an Australian patrol plane, or you come within 5 feet of a Japanese aircraft. Say this is pretty dicey, and I think the Chinese wouldn't mind have somebody getting hurt, somebody getting killed, and then they will say, look, this is our territory, you're in here, we've been telling you not to, and they'll put the onus on the victim, as they always do. It's the classic behavior of a bully. In this case, it is a very aggressive totalitarian China that wants other people's territory, and as part of that, they want to dominate people, control them. And that's their MO. It's really nothing surprising, but it is taking place in the context of this concocted fury that the Chinese have after Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi said in the Diet, the very matter-of-fact statement, yeah, Taiwan's important to us. If China attacks it, we might have to do something. And that is unobjectionable. China, they're just always on the lookout for an excuse, not that they really need one, but they've used this and they've been playing it to the max.
Now, on the point of Takaichi's comments, Craig Singleton, he's the senior director of the China program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He actually just wrote an op-ed for the New York Times, and part of it says, quote, this is a pivotal moment for regional stability. Japan should hold firm, and the United States should stand with it. If either backs down, Beijing will treat it as proof that pressure pays. What are your thoughts on that and how this could play out in the region?
Yeah, well, we've been undergoing a pivotal moment for about the last decade at least. This is one example, though, where the Chinese are constantly testing, constantly probing, testing will to see what the Japanese will do to defend themselves, and as importantly, what the Americans will do to step in to help the Japanese. And this has been a long-standing issue, not just an issue of failure, I would say, is that the Americans and the Japanese still do not have a joint defense of the Japan's southern islands, which is where the Senkakus are. And by joint defense, I don't mean the occasional scripted exercise. I mean a standing headquarters where Japanese and American forces and officers do the necessary patrols, exercises, ready to defend the place, and if necessary, to push back, and if necessary, shoot back if fired upon. We don't have that, amazingly enough. The Japanese seem to be wanting to do it themselves, and it doesn't appear the Americans have actually talked to the Japanese and said, look, let's do this together. There's actually firing ranges that the Americans are entitled to use by treaty down around the Senkaku Islands. You send American aircraft and ships down there and do it with the Japanese Air Force, the Japanese Navy, and use these places. And that is going to send a message, a pretty direct one, to the Chinese that you're not going to be pushed around. But that's what the Chinese are doing. They are testing and probing. And say this has been going on for a long time. And the idea that it's somehow new, that's not quite right. But nonetheless, it is significant. And you just have to drop your guard once in a way that the Chinese recognize that you're going to be in big trouble. And I think they haven't been all that impressed with what the Americans and the Japanese have done to push back against them in this region.
Now, Taiwan is just 160 kilometers southwest of the Senkaku Islands. Given that, what do these Chinese incursions near these islands mean for Taiwan and that possible Chinese invasion?
Well, if you want to attack Taiwan, you have to cover your left flank, look up to the north. And that's where the Japanese islands are. It's where the Japanese military is. The U.S. forces can operate out of there as well. So taking Senkaku Islands would really cover your flank, as it is, if you're attacking Taiwan. But also it is a political, psychological move as well, an attempt of domination, control. And that is as much the meaning as anything else. And the Chinese are trying to, they said, make the Japanese back down, pull out of their own territory. And you just keep going, you push and push and push. So there's a political and psychological reason as much as a very sound military operational reason as well.
An important point. Grant Newsham, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, glad to be here. Always appreciate it.